beyond that, and this is actually something that a friend pointed out to me the other day, who also works in technology and programming and web design, and he pointed out that lesson books are one part of how Waldorf really does a great job of getting you used to creating something from nothing. And I hadn't thought about it that way, but now that once you said that, it made a lot of sense, because there's a lot of, in computers and, well, in all sorts of things, but there's a lot of copying and pasting. There's a lot of taking someone's work, and maybe not in a malicious way, but taking what exists and then copying it, and then maybe making a little change to the name or something, and then this is what you produced. But I think a lot of people do that, or are taught to do that, because it's easier, and because you can generally get the same results. But what isn't the same at all is what's happened in your head, because you haven't, again, internalized a lot of this information. So having that be something that you're comfortable with, so you have a blank page and then you can create an essay about, you know, your favorite Roman emperor. Being able to be comfortable to start from scratch and work up to something. Really, I think there's a good edge on a lot of people, even within software. It's not bad practice to use something that already exists, but you really learn a lot more if you are comfortable with starting from scratch and being able to start at the beginning and really learn all the pieces that are necessary to get to the end result. I guess the final thing that I'll say about it is that everyone knows that programming and web design is really tedious, and everyone knows that it's really logic driven. So that's mostly, I think, what everyone knows about it. And that's what a lot of people consider it, even who do it all the time. But beyond that, what I've found it to be is really creative. And there's all sorts of creativity that's taught on all different levels here at Pleasant Ridge and in New Waldorf School. Creativity is a real hallmark and a real basis for a lot of the actions or a lot of the activities. Just encouraging creativity and allowing space for children to figure out what they need to do for themselves. And so it's been a huge relief to me, in a way, to find out how creative this endeavor can be. And it's I think, just giving me a good edge on people, either in the industry or in other industries, to just be able to recognize where the creativity can be applied, because a lot of it is problem solving, and if you're relying on somebody else's solutions to problems, you may not be learning as much as you can if you really try and figure out your own solutions. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what I wanted to say today, that I have thought over the last 5 years or so, and through college, been able to place a lot of emphasis on my high school years and what I learned there, and with a lot of industriousness and, you know, responsibility, things like that in high school a lot. And it's really just been in the last few years, working more in what I'm doing now, that I have been able to look a little farther back and see some of these activities and some of these things that were really a basis, and appreciate them now for giving me new skills, I guess. So that's that. Again, we can field questions and be happy. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah. You know, that last statement reminds me of something that we find ourselves encouraging parents, first grade parents, second grade parents, third grade parents. You can't really see it all until they're about 30 years old, or 35. But then it starts becoming very, very clear. So hearing stories like this, yeah, it's perfect.
I'm not 35.
I know you're not. But anyway, does anyone have questions?
I have one.
Yes.
You said, you're creating your own textbooks, and then when you went to college, and then you had to use the textbooks, because that's pretty much what the curriculum mandated. How was that transition for you?
Sure.
Did everyone hear that question?
No.
So she's referred to when I spoke about creating your own textbook, and asked about going to college where you don't do that, and asked how that transition was to go to use textbooks for classes. What I found is that it became very useful for me for studying, the ability to re-express the information that I learned in my own way if I needed to. I didn't find a problem with using textbooks really at all. It's a lot of reading, but it wasn't really a replacement. It was more that here's the new source of information, and now I can still use this way of taking notes or of drawing diagrams to internalize the information that I'm learning from the textbook. So there were a few times when I made some rather complicated study guides that made me think of being in second grade again, but those were useful. So yeah, it wasn't so much of a transition, but it was just another piece of information to have.
Yes.
Since it sounds like you were probably born in the late 80s, when did you first you always have a computer in your home? And when would you say you first had the experience that you felt like you were competent using computers? Just like as a gauge to, like what's going on today with kids, like knowing from the...
Yeah. Okay, repeat that question quickly. She asked, given that I was born in the late 80s, when was it that I first felt competent using a computer at home, or when did I first have a computer at home? So to answer that, we had a computer since I was real little. My parents used it for this or that, and I played games on it, a small amount.
But only on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Only on the weekend. And I hated it too, so I understood how bad it was at the time. So, competent with computers, I will say this, we had a typing class in 6th grade over at I think it was 6th grade. 8th grade? Okay, in 8th grade. I don't recall when it was. But we took a typing class over at the technical college in 8th grade. And I've gotten way better at typing in the last couple of years, probably, than I was at all. But that was good. Typing now is pretty important generally. And so, but I didn't use computers for schoolwork at all until high school. In high school I did for papers eventually. So it was, so I guess I would say I was comfortable enough to use my own computers, like the ones we had at home, but I didn't have it as my own thing, or have it, or use it all the time until more in high school than for writing papers.
I would just say too, oops. Does that work? Does that work? No. So tomorrow morning there's going to be a little class, a little workshop on technology and children, if anybody's around and wants to go to it. I think it's at 10 o'clock.
And we'll have panelists.
And there will be panelists, an early childhood educator, a high school educator, and one more. A child psychologist. So we'll talk about media, technology, and the young child and going on.
And we have a representative from the high school as well.
Right, yes.
Yeah. And that's for adults.
Right. So it's for adults. It's at the old main building, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning. But I would just jump in here and say that one of the things that's important, it's a concept. It's just something to think about. When you give your child something to do, it means they're not doing something else. Just think about it. If they're in the computer room inside on a really nice day, they're not outside getting fresh air, running around, learning how to balance and do all the things that helps them do other technology things like ride a bike, learn how to pitch hay. You know, there's so many other things that are technology. That's just a very narrow band of current technology that we're talking about. Learning how to chop vegetables, use tools, grind things, drill things, chop things. Oh, kids need all that, but it's today's world, we think it's also unsafe. But it teaches them so much that then they'll put into action in physics and chemistry and all the other things that we want them to take up. But they will have something in their body that a relationship is started. But not through technology, not through a screen. They don't get that kind of relationship. So just think about that. Same thing with riding in cars. How many hours really in a week compared to riding a bike, walking, and all those things. So that's just my little pitch about technology or comment. So who had that question over here? Yes.
How did you adjust to the pressure of testing in university systems?
Yeah, okay, the question is about how did I adjust to the pressure of testing when I was in college? And yeah, so one thing about just, as you said in college, I didn't, the school next door doesn't have grades either, so.
That's Youth Initiative.
Yeah, Youth Initiative High School, so I didn't really encounter grades at all until college. We had little quizzes, I studied for the SAT in high school, so testing was not foreign to me. It was, and happens to be something that was kind of fun to me. This is not what everyone feels about testing, I guarantee it. But, so that said, it wasn't completely foreign. But when I got to college and started getting grades, it was to me a lot easier because it's all listed what you have to do to get an A, and then you do those things, and that's what happens. So it found it to be more of a game with grades once I was in college. And I did not get all A's. It's not easy to get A's necessarily, but it's a different. But having those rubrics all set out so clear made it easier.
I could say that last year in the area schools, all of our graduates took valedictorian. That's saying a lot. Kickapoo, Westby, Viroqua. I mean, this is a typical, I look at the paper every week to see who's on the honor roll. I track quite a lot. They're doing very well. And if you go back to our webpage and go to the alumni site, we've listed this year all the colleges that our graduates have gone to, which is very, very impressive. Several overseas, I mean, it's very impressive. So just take a look there and you'll see how they make accomplishments in their life.